I want to talk to you briefly about how to approach extracting data for an evidence synthesis from a case report. Now, normally, most systematic reviews and meta-analyses won't include case reports, which are thick or rich descriptions of a single patient case. But one of the things that it may occur is that you're dealing in an area, or you're working in an area that just doesn't have a whole lot of information. Maybe it is an emerging area, or whatever. But sometimes there will be a need for this. Now, extracting information from a case report is a little bit different. Case reports are unique in that even though they only have one patient or subject, very often they have rich material and rich description that you don't find in a typical, say, observational study like a cohort design or a case control. And so what we want to do when we capture this is take advantage of the richness of the material. So you can see here that I've got, this is from Military Medicine. It's a comment by Falvo and colleagues. It's about a diagnostic workup of a particular patient, okay? And this patient has constrictive bronchiolitis. Now, one of the things that we are going to do, and I'm going to pull this over and show you, is here I'm using SRDR to extract the data from this article, and you can see this is one that I've already extracted, and you can see I've already got my key question. Let me show you what it's going to look like and how it might be a little bit different, and what we're doing on this project when we capture the data from these types of articles. So under design details, okay, you can see that, I've indicated that it's a case study. If they include inclusion and exclusion criteria, we chose this particular subject because you want to put that in there. If they don't report it, just NA. Now, let me talk to you about setting up ARMS. The way we want to set up ARMS is typically a patient will be diagnosed with a particular disease or condition. Now, what we've done is set up suggested ARMS, so the target disease diagnosed as positive. You can see I selected that one, and then in the description, I put constrictive bronchiolitis. Now, if it was a patient that was diagnosed with CPD, I would have still chosen target disease diagnosed positive, but changed the description down here to COPD or whatever the disease condition was, and save that. Now you'll notice there's only one arm, and that makes perfect sense. Now let's look at some outcome details, okay, and how we set that up. Again, you would answer this just like it's pretty straightforward. If they describe clinical symptoms, and often the case reports will, the symptoms that we are interested in are dyspnea, upper and lower airway systems, and so we would just select which ones were reported. Now, this one down here, results statistically adjusted for possible confounders. Well, that's really not going to apply to a single case, okay? At least in the normal way it would with, say, a cohort or a case control or even a cross-sectional study. So we would just put no and not applicable. Now let's look at exposure details. This is where some of the benefit of extracting data from a case report really comes into play. Now, we've set this up so that we can capture data from case control or cohort studies where we would say, what proportion are military, and we would put the proportion and the N in here. But for a case study, it's just they were military. And rather than leave this blank, which we would normally put in a number if it was case control or cohort, we just put in case. And that just tells us when we download the data that we're looking at a single case. And you can see I've gone down through here, and just put in the description of all the characteristics that this person that they report in the article. And again, one of the things you see here, we're really interested in detail on burn pit exposure. Rarely will a case control or cohort or an observational study that has many participants, they usually don't get this granular. In a case report, we do have this. So they report that she had daily frequency of exposure. She was proximal to the burn pit, and she was assigned to burn waste multiple times per month, etc. A similar sort of thing with sample characteristics. Again, we don't have to put in the N and percent female. This was just a female case, etc. And you can see I've just selected the characteristics that were appropriate. Now, what's going to happen with outcomes? This is going to be a little bit different because I want you to notice something here. There are a lot of outcomes, okay? And this can be a little overwhelming, but one of the things that'll happen is in a case control or a case report, very often they can give a lot more detail on a lot more outcomes. Now, it may seem kind of tedious, but we really need to capture all of that. Now, where do we capture that? Let me jump back to my case report. You'll notice that as I scroll down through here, they give a narrative description of many of the characteristics, okay? And that's great and that's helpful. But what you really want to look for are tables. And I want you to notice here, and I actually marked it here, just to go ahead and get the data from the supplementary table, because that's going to lay everything out for me and make it easy for me to pull in those results. And let me show you what that looks like. So I'll jump back here. What I did was I went to the article online, and then down at the bottom is the supplementary material. Now I've already downloaded this, so I'll just pull this up real quick. And here you can see it. Okay, so I have the results from the pulmonary function tests. I have the pre and then the post in some cases. I also have the percent predicted. Now we weren't interested in the 5th percentile, but we were interested in pre, post, and then the percent predicted. And then for the cardiopulmonary exercise test, the CPET, what we did is we had different measures. We had them at rest, we had them at their the VAT, and then which was the ventilatory aerobic threshold, and then also their peak performance. So we want to capture all these. We want to capture these because, again, when if we have many case reports, which in this project we do, this is going to allow us to compare across conditions what these different measures are. So you can see how this is set up in SRDR when I'm defining the outcomes. Again, for ones that just have one measure, like these different measures here, we just captured them at baseline. Where there's a pre and a post, okay, we defined it such that, and I'll show you how to do that. You see we have a baseline and a post for the time point. Again, you can leave the population pretty much just as it is because it's all participants. It's that one participant, all right? And then the one thing that this analyst did was to kind of preface for the pulmonary function test, PFT, and then what the different measures were. And then for the CPET, they're down here. All right, so they captured all of those. And you can see for the CPET, and let me pop that up again, we had 3 measures: rest, the threshold, and then the peak. And you can see how this analyst here captured all 3 of those as time points, baseline, VAT, and peak. All right, so we were able to capture all of that information. Now, let me show you what this is going to look like then in terms of results. And I'll just pop over here. So for PFT, all right, we have the observed value is all there is, and then the N, which is 1. All right, those are the only two pieces of information that you have in there. If we jump down to, say, the CPET, okay, let me pull up one of these. You'll see that we have the baseline, the VAT, and the peak. Again, what was the observed value and the N. And that's it. That's all we're gathering. And so what we'll be able to do when we do a data download, again, is compare across case reports to what these values were. And so that's really going to help us. So that's done. We'll mark that as completed. Now, one other thing that I should point out is that when we have case reports where they are only captured in conference abstracts. Now, conference abstracts are a bit of a challenge simply because they have so much less data and much less information. Essentially, from those, we have to work with what we've got. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of NA. They can't report a lot of information. Generally, there's like a 350 word limit. But we can still capture in the same way that we are for a case report the information that they have. So that's how we'll approach extracting data from a case report, and then when you have a case report that's reported in a conference abstract, again, same way, but we just work from what we have. And some conference abstracts will have a table associated where we can pull on the information. And in that case, we definitely want to do it. But the one key piece that I want to jump back to real quick is often you will need to look in supplementary material. Okay? And don't hesitate to sort of pull that up, download it, and again, that's going to make your life a lot easier. So that's how we'll approach this.